The sun hung low over Springfield, casting a sickly yellow glow across the cracked sidewalks and crooked streets. Lisa Simpson pedaled her rusty bicycle with purpose, her saxophone bouncing in its case strapped to her back. She hummed a jazzy tune under her breath, her mind buzzing with thoughts of the library book tucked into her basket. A dense tome on climate change she'd finished annotating the night before. The air smelled faintly of donuts and the acrid tang of the nuclear plant's exhaust, a scent so familiar it barely registered. She swerved around a pothole, her brow furrowed in concentration. This was her routine, her small rebellion against the chaos of her family. Bart's pranks, Homer's laziness, Marge's quiet denial. Today, though, the chaos would catch up. Somewhere ahead, a low rumble grew louder, vibrating through the pavement. Lisa glanced up just as a beat-up delivery truck barreled around the corner, its faded Krusty Kreme logo peeling off the side. Behind the wheel was Homer, her father, his eyes glazed with a mix of sugar and distraction. A half-eaten donut dangled from his lips, and a bottle of Duff beer rolled across the dashboard. He reached for it, chuckling to himself, oblivious to the road. Beer, he mumbled, swerving the truck into Lisa's path. She yanked the handlebars, but the front tire hit a jagged stone and popped with a sharp hiss. The bike wobbled, and before she could scream, the truck's grill loomed like a hungry mouth. The impact was deafening, a sickening crunch of metal against bone. Lisa's body flew upward, her saxophone case snapping open midair, the instrument glinting briefly in the sunlight. She crashed into the windshield, the glass shattering into a spider web of cracks. Blood sprayed across the cab, mixing with the sticky pink glaze of scattered donuts. Homer slammed on the brakes. Too late, his voice breaking through the haze. "Doh!" Lisa's vision blurred as the world tilted. Her last sight was a donut rolling past her face, its sprinkles stained red. Then nothing. She didn't stay gone. Consciousness clawed its way back, dragging her into a place that wasn't death as she'd imagined it. No pearly gates, no fiery pits, just an endless dark. Lisa blinked, her body somehow whole again, though her skin prickled with an unnatural chill. She stood on a surface that pulsed beneath her sneakers, soft and warm like living flesh. She looked down and stifled a gasp. The ground was a writhing carpet of blonde hair, her hair, each strand curling and twisting like worms starved for light. It brushed against her ankles, tugging gently, as if tasting her presence. The air hung thick, heavy with the scent of dust and something sour, like donuts left to rot. A sound pierced the silence, a high, wailing note from a saxophone. Lisa's hands twitched, and she realized with horror that they clutched her instrument, though she hadn't reached for it. She tried to drop it, but her fingers wouldn't obey. The notes came faster, unbidden, a cacophony of screeches that sounded like animals being skinned alive. Her chest tightened as she fought to stop, but the harder she resisted, the worse it got. Her fingers stretched, elongating like rubber bands pulled to their limit, the skin splitting at the tips. Blood trickled down the saxophone's keys, yet the music grew louder, a howling dirge that rattled her skull. She stumbled backward, tears welling in her eyes, but the tears didn't fall. They hovered, then darted upward, sucked into dozens of tiny eyes sprouting from the walls, or what passed for walls in this void. The eyes bulged, wet and glistening, each one bearing a face she knew too well. Marge's worried frown, Bart's mocking grin, Homer's vacant stare. They watched her, unblinking, their pupils dilating as silent laughter rippled through them. Lisa's throat burned with a scream she couldn't release, her hand still fused to the saxophone, the torment twisting deeper into her soul. Desperate, she turned to run, but the ground betrayed her. The hairs coiled around her legs, pulling her down like quicksand. She clawed at them, her nails tearing into the strands, but they only tightened, dragging her beneath the surface. The last thing she saw was the saxophone sinking with her, its bell gaping like a mouth ready to swallow her whole. Then the darkness closed in and she fell down, down, into the next layer of her endless nightmare. Lisa clawed her way out of the suffocating grip of the hair-covered ground, gasping as the strands released her with a wet, reluctant slither. She emerged not into the void she'd left, but into a cavernous room that stretched endlessly in all directions. The air was thick with the stench of moldy chalk and sweat, a smell that tugged at memories of Springfield Elementary. Before her stood rows of desks, their surfaces jagged and uneven, carved from bones that creaked with every shift of the dim, flickering light. She staggered to her feet, the saxophone gone from her hands, though its ghostly wail still echoed faintly in her ears. This place felt wrong, familiar, yet twisted beyond recognition. A piece of paper materialized on the nearest desk, yellowed and curling the edges like an old detention slip. Lisa approached, her heart sinking as she read the scrawled heading. Final exam, Lisa Simpson. The questions below were madness. How many breaths does a lie steal? What color bleeds from a clown's soul? Why did you fail the world? Each one more nonsensical than the last. She gripped a pencil that appeared in her hand. It was splintered and damp and tried to write. But every wrong answer, and they were all wrong, sent a jolt through her. Her tongue swelled, growing thick and heavy, curling back into her throat until she gagged. She dropped the pencil, choking, only for the sensation to vanish and the test to reset, pristine and waiting. Laughter erupted around her, low and guttural. Figures shimmered into existence at the desks, her classmates, but not as she knew them. Milhouse sat closest. His glasses melted into his face, the lenses dripping like wax down his cheeks as he wheezed. "You're so smart, Lisa. So why are you here?" Nelson loomed behind, his mouth sewn shut with thick black thread, yet his muffled cackle slipped through the stitches, sharp as knives. Ralph Wiggum rocked in his seat, his hands oozing a tar-like slime that pooled on the floor, his voice a sing-song whisper. "I see you in my boogers." They stared at her, their faces warping, eyes sinking, noses elongating, until they were grotesque parodies of the kids she'd once known. A shadow fell over her desk, and Lisa looked up to see Principal Skinner, or something wearing his skin. His face was cracked like shattered porcelain, the pieces shifting as he spoke in a voice that buzzed like a swarm of flies. "You'll never pass, Lisa. You'll never leave." He handed her another test, its pages blank yet somehow heavier than the last. She tried to protest, but the words caught in her throat as the room shuddered. The walls began to close in, not with bricks or plaster, but with mirrors, tall, rippling sheets of glass that reflected not her, but versions of her. One Lisa skittered across the floor on spider legs, her head swollen and eyeless. Another stared back with a face pocked with pulsing holes, each one whispering her name in a chorus of despair. She screamed, the sound bouncing off the mirrors, amplifying until it drilled into her skull. She bolted from the desk, her sneakers slipping on the bone-strewn floor, but there was nowhere to run. The mirrors pressed closer, their reflections reaching out with claw-like hands. Just as they grazed her skin, the floor buckled and a hole yawned open beneath her. She fell, tumbling through darkness, her stomach lurching as the school dissolved above her. When she landed, it was with a jolt that rattled her teeth. She lay sprawled on a cold, sticky surface, staring up a flickering television suspended in the void. It hummed to life, its screen crackling with static before resolving into an image that made her blood run cold. Her family, the Simpsons, sitting on their couch as if nothing had changed. But something was wrong, terribly wrong, and Lisa knew this was only the beginning of the next torment waiting to unfold. Lisa hit the ground hard, her body sinking into a surface that felt like cold, congealed grease. The television loomed above her, its screen glowing with a sickly green hue as the static cleared. She squinted, her breath catching as the image sharpened. Her family, the Simpsons, sprawled on their familiar couch. Marge knitted a sweater, but a third eye blinked on the back of her head, staring straight at Lisa with an unreadable gaze. Bart gnawed on a donut, its pink frosting oozing red like blood, dripping onto the floor in thick clots. Homer laughed at the TV. Their TV, his body bloating and softening, melting into a quivering mass of yellow flesh that swallowed the cushions. They were happy, oblivious, living without her. Lisa pounded her fist against the invisible barrier between them, screaming their names, but her voice shattered into a swarm of buzzing shapes. The shapes solidified, bees, hundreds of them, their tiny faces twisted into sneering replicas of Mr. Burns. They dove at her, stingers piercing her skin with surgical precision. Each sting burned and her flesh bubbled, swelling into a grotesque honeycomb that wept black, syrupy pus. She clawed at her arms, trying to rip the hives away, but the bees kept coming, their buzzing forming words. "Excellent! Suffer! Simpson!" Her cries grew hoarse as the ground beneath her split open, a jagged maw of her swallowing her whole. She fell again, deeper into the abyss, her body tumbling until it slammed against something hard and twisted. She looked up, trembling, and saw it. A tree, gnarled and wrong, its roots clawing at the sky while its branches plunged into the ground like spears. Its bark pulsed with veins, and it whispered in a chorus of voices that sounded like her own, warped and accusing. "Justice is a lie, Lisa. Equality is a dream. Intelligence is your curse." The words wrapped around her mind, tightening like a noose. Before she could move, the branches lashed out, coiling around her wrists and ankles. They yanked her upward, pinning her against the trunk, and then they pierced her through her arms, her legs, her stomach. Pain exploded, white-hot and endless, as the tree drank her screams. From a wound sprouted flowers, their petals made of torn pages from her favorite books. Silent Spring, The Lorax, Moby Dick. The pages fluttered, stained with her blood, and released a cloud of pollen that shimmered like ash. It invaded her lungs, choking her, and she coughed violently. Tiny figures spilled from her mouth, miniature Lisas, each one a perfect copy, their eyes wide with terror. They crawled over her, biting and tearing at her flesh with needle-like teeth, their voices a high-pitched wail. "Why weren't you enough?" Her body buckled, dissolving under their assault, only to reform into new, monstrous shapes. It had sprouting spider legs, a torso slithering like a slug, eyes floating free, and weeping ink that burned her skin. Through the haze of agony, a figure emerged in the distance. The comic book guy, his bulk silhouetted against a void that pulsed like a heartbeat. He held a tattered comic, Saxophone Sangrento, its cover smeared with something dark and wet. "Worst. Inferno. Ever," he drawled, his laughter a low, guttural rumble that shook the tree. Lisa's vision blurred as a realization sank in. This wasn't punishment for her flaws, but for her virtues, her relentless pursuit of meaning in Springfield's absurdity. The tree tightened its grip, its roots dragging her deeper into its core, and she felt herself unraveling, her essence scattering into the abyss. The cycle reset. The tree spat her out, and she landed once more on the carpet of writhing blonde hair from the beginning, the saxophone's wail rising in the distance. Her mind fractured, a brilliant light snuffed out by horrors she couldn't escape. This was her eternity, a nightmare woven from her own ideals, a grotesque tapestry of suffering born from the warped heart of Springfield. And so, Lisa Simpson endured, forever trapped in the abyss she'd unknowingly built.